What's up everyone, this is Schirach talking, welcome back to my channel. Today video I'll be doing a review of the romancing Festival Jamil banner that brings SS Jamil, SS Farah, and SS Schirach. This is the second version of Schirach. Farah is getting her first style, but Jamil already has plenty of others. This time he's dressed as a woman because of a plot point in romancing SaGa minstrel song. But the gender inside the game is still male, just to clear some confusions. Well, Jamil is the best character of the banner because he's supportive, he's also defensive, and can even do some good damage. Schirach is the second best, with Farah being only, well, different design. Well, let's go to rsrstb.com. We have plenty of different styles of Jamil here. Actually, we only had two that were limited. The ones that were limited is this one called I Hate the Sun, and then we got the UDX called On to Bigger Things, and after that we got a spiral version. It's kinda hard to compare the styles between them, but we'll try because it's been a while since the last Jamil version. As you can see, we have 85 endurance against the UDX that only has 74. There is 104% dexterity against 95, so 90%. Kinda similar. The agility is a little inferior to the two past styles. The intelligence is terrible, it was even debuffed here on global, and the will is a little higher. Will is always nice to have so that you don't get inflicted with status ailments. He does have a lot of charisma because he puts this status into use. Yes, let's click here. Jamil has the wind element, but he does not use it. When looking on all the status, you get double arrows for dexterity and also one arrow for charisma. It's actually pretty easy to farm because if you want to find agility, you can just farm with his tower style, and this one is available to everyone. Now, let's move into the passives. The first one is called Offensive Union 2. When all allies are still surviving, increases damage for everyone by 10%. Well, this is pretty useful, and it was seen in the last version of Barbara. Global X Barbara has this, something that you'll find in the future styles from time to time. As you see here, Offensive Union 2. Jamil uses this pretty well because he has a second passive that also relies on having everyone alive in the party, and that is Scrum Guard. This one decreases damage by 20% as long as everyone is alive. 20% is amazing because something like Guard Up Medium decreases damage by 25, and since the Scrum Guard stacks with Guard Up, it's just a very good way to decrease incoming damage, and when combo it with something like Tiger's Den, for example, you are about to receive very low amounts of damage. Scrum Guard is always useful in a character that we already have, that one being Empress. The Global X Empress has it with her style, the Scrum Guard, as you can see, but this version of Final Empress is still the superior user for sure because she has Imperial Shield. This is amazing. She also actually okay offensively, it can even revive. But she is for slash and sun damage, and this version of Jamil focus on pierce damage and also slash. And you can stack both things. Let's say that you have Scrum Guard, the damage was 100, and then you have Scrum Guard active, it will decrease to 80%, and then you want to stack with a second Scrum Guard, it will then decrease 80 for 20% more, so that decreases it to 62. So you see, it stacks multiplicative, not additive, but it's still a very good way to decrease incoming damage from very hard challenges. Other Scrum Guard users are Zeke. Zeke is a blunt damage dealer. He is also a counter unit. Many people summon it for this character with the Perfector banner, but the utility of this one is different. You can still stack even 3 Scrum Guards if you want, but just to remember that there are other options. The fourth one is Jorg. That's actually pretty old, never seen a rerun, and it's pretty defensive, barely does any type of damage. It's just a healer with some tanking capabilities. With that said, having this available will help you in many scenarios in the game, like Remembrance Battle especially, because you only have a handful happier users to use, and he's the best supportive one. And in boss fights, when in general squads, when you have to do pierce damage. Because Jamil is also some sort of buffer, he will contribute with damage, not just being fully defensive. More into that later. Okay, the third passive is called High Protect Tension. This one is amazing, and we've seen this in the best meta characters because it decreases the damage even further. Well, it decreases by 30%, and then it also increases the damage that he inflicts by 20. It's his only damage passive per se, but with Offensive Union he reaches 30%. So in the end, 20 plus 30 reduction damage and 20 plus 10 increase. With that said, let's move on to skills. The first one is called Lady Step. For 4BP, you get a support skill that's fast, so it always casts before the enemies and brings 3 different utilities. The first one, it inflicts charm on targets. Charm relies on charisma instead of intelligence, so it actually has a very good value to allow you to charm when needed. Well, to be honest, there's barely any content in the game that asks for charm, but there will be a remembrance battle where you can inflict either charm or confusion on a boss as a part of the mechanic, so having this will help you in the future. And then it also gives you Morale Up Small, that increases damage by 15%, and Guard Up Small, that decreases the damage that you receive by 12%. It only lasts for 1 turn, so you have to keep casting this. If you are using him for full support, it kinda works, because for only 4 BP, it means that you can use this plenty of times in a row before you run out. A good comparison is against Global X Rufus, because he does have this There You Go skill that gives an attack boost and a defense boost. Both have 15% value, and he also heals. So you're trading off the heal for the charm effect. The thing is that this Rufus has access to 4 BP a turn, but then There You Go spends 6. That means that eventually he uses this less than Jamil does, but you have the heal effect. So there's that. They are similar but not the same. One good thing, they can even stack if you want, because Rufus is attack boost instead of morale up, and defense boost instead of guard up. You can use them all together. It's not that it's something really useful in my opinion, but yes, it does work. But I have to say that this will mostly be used in Remembrance than in normal fights, because there's plenty of different morale up and guard ups available, and sometimes you may want to have bigger values, like morale up can reach as much as 50% with Barbara or 40% with Mikhail, and guard up can reach as much as 35% with someone like Golden Ball. So if you're running Golden Ball, you would not be one to use this skill with your Jamil. Remember, her Shrine Dance decreases damage by 35. So it's actually pretty interesting because they work well together, but then you have to forget about skill 1 with Jamil. Now, second skill is called Streaming Pierce, and this one is actually pretty powerful. It's a S power attack with slash and pierce damage that hits for a row of foes. I have to say that the damage is just the same as someone like Heaven on Earth, a skill that you see many times in the game. It's also available in someone like Rick, see, S power 39, but this skill is an amplified. That means that it's pretty recent, and even then it hits only 1 target, but here you are hitting for a row with double elements, even with the same BP cost. So this allows Jamil to attack 2 times, and if you are farming, this is going to do a lot of damage. I don't know if Jamil will be able to solo some content. He will probably just be missing a little, but then you can just bring another AoE character, for example, to help out with damage. Well, we just got some characters that are focused on column, like Soji, Gustave, and Darky. Now we start seeing more characters able to do roll damage, because the events will also have enemies allied in a row. And just for comparison, remember, many of our best AoE attackers had A power skills. Now we are seeing an S power, so if the enemies are aligned in a row, it's much better to use row attacks instead of full AoEs. And events only have 2 waves, that means that he will be good for farming in these setups. Then the third skill is called Floral Cracker. This is an APP attack with fast property again, so nice. And it deals pierce and slash damage with C power 20 mod, actually just 1 mod away from being B. It's just the same mod as Abyral Hands, for example, that you can find on Bertrand or also in Barthélemy. And not just that, he also grants all surviving allies a pierce attack boost that can reach as much as 35% increase. Well, I can tell you that this is pretty much similar to what you get with someone like Aunus in his UDX style. He has Ablation Dance that increases 25% for slash and 25% for heat, for example. But then it can just stack and allow you to do much more damage with characters that have both elements, right? So Jamil is only focused on pierce, of course, even through his attack is both pierce and slash. But then you can bring characters like, well, Xenon, like Mikhail, and they will do a lot of damage. He actually works super well with Mikhail because Mikhail will be used right after him, since it has a high attack order. And then if you have other Pierce attack units, the damage will be very good. But then you have to remember that this is AoE, so works better when there's multiple enemies. If there's no multiple enemies, it still works well to increase the damage potential of other ones. When farming, at least on story mode, it will also work on turn 1 and then on turn 3. But usually in events, you only have 2 waves. So depending on the setup, it will not be so useful as some other characters. Well, with that said, as you see, his agility is not that high, but since 2 of his attacks can be fired up first because of fast, it doesn't matter too much. And if you want to use him for farming because of streaming Pierce, you're going to use him on a Magia fight formation that will increase his turn order, and he will attack before the enemies all the time. And another thing, streaming Pierce being a roll attack will also help against the Death Master, a future remembrance battle where the enemies are aligning in a row. When you need to nuke, you can even switch out to Floral Cracker if your older damage dealers have much higher power. So when you see everything combined, Jamil has a kit that will last for the foreseeable future. Scrum Guard is just that important. Right now, we are having bosses that have the 5 weaknesses, sometimes they buff breaks, so buffing and debuffing are not as reliable as it was in the past. So having different mechanics like defense mechanics like Scrum Guard, or morale down, or attack down, or guard up, defense enhancement will be more important. And that's why I really like Scrum Guard when thinking about the future. He's also pretty defensive because of high protect tension and can even do damage. It's a character that tries to cover many fronts. Usually when a character tries to do that, it fails, but Jamil does have a good status distribution and access to passives and skills that really matter. Now there's one thing that Jamil lacks, a single target nuke, and he doesn't have any good ones when you look on all of his past styles. Maybe we'll get something by Amplify in the future, but you have to use Streaming Pierce as your single target option. It's actually not bad when you look as a single target attack, even though it's a roll one. Also, one good inheritance can be Stingray in the future will be amplifiable into C Power 20 mod. That is exactly the same as Floral Cracker, but he will be able to use it twice. For farming, it's not the best thing ever, but serviceable, especially for newer accounts. So when you look on this, most of the time when you are farming, there's more than one target, so he will feel at least 2 different strategies, roll and AoE. But he won't feel those that have single target enemies. Besides, he is mostly used in boss fights because of high protect tension, Scrum Guard, and party support, and will fit in all Remembrance battle squads. I believe that some people say that it's not worth to summon a character when it's just for Remembrance battle, but what if it fits in all different squads? Because sometimes you are summoning because one character has Paralyze to help you with the real Queen, but Jamil Sustain will help with all Remembrance battles from now on. Now, you may be asking, I already have Final Impress, do I really need Jamil? To be honest, although they have Scrum Guard, they should not be compared all the time. Depending on the situation, if you need a shield, you always use Final Impress first, and then if you have space for Jamil, you may use him, especially if the enemy is weak to Pierce. But let's say that you don't want to use Tiger's Den as a formation, because that one decreases damage by 50%. It's pretty amazing, but it brings some problems. You can't use fast attacks, you cannot buff your agility and attack before the enemies because the formation bonus disappears. You cannot use fast attacks. Look, Jamil even has a fast attack. So you may have to use formations that have different focus, like the Tortoise one. And then you can bring Bolt there, even Golden Ball if you want. And they will all work well together without having to care about the attack order or if your characters have too much agility. And because he governs over a different type of element, it's just another way to deal with content. So that's why Jamil actually brings a lot to the table. And if you don't bring, for example, Golden Ball, you can even use Lady Step to give Guard Up and Morale Up all the time. That's what he's going to do. Kind of similar to what you do with Mantra. Just keep buffing every turn. You will receive less damage and deal more. It's his role as a support unit. You can choose exactly how you want to use Jamil. So in my opinion, Jamil is a top tier unit. May not beat Final Impress, but not every support unit needs to. We know how broken Final Impress is, but he may be very close in terms of utility if you do not need the shield. If you don't need the shield, there will be scenarios where Jamil will be even better. Like I said, he can cast Morale and guard up. At least if you don't have any other caster, this will help. That's why he deserves at least the top SS tier. I will be observing his performance and then maybe making an update. If he deserves a SS tier, we'll change, but I will also take into consideration feedback on this character. I never played JP, so this is my opinion, seeing the game as a whole. So the only problem is that Jamil is on a banner where, well, only one other style is really good. So the value will be discussed in the end. But now talking about the future, there is another style in JP. This is a bow user that got released alongside Minstrel Song Announcement. And this Jamil is a debuffer. He's actually very good for dexterity debuffs. Even has a passive relying on this. Can also confuse, debuff agility, and stun. Kinda made for members who try to cover many roles. But it's regarded as a good unit because of this. You can even interchange the inheritance so that it will help when you need specific type of debuffs. Well, with that said, then the next character is Schirach. We have two different versions of Schirach in the game, and also Shiel, another character that also shares inheritance, but we'll talk more about that later. Well, the first Schirach was released on January, and now we are getting the second one called Out of Our Sight, Wretch. This one is much better in status. We have bigger endurance, we have 16% more agility, and 3% more intelligence. I wish she had more intelligence than that, because I have been using the first Schirach in some content and she was missing. That means that if the enemies get higher agility and will, this version of Schirach may miss too. She has much higher will, and love and charisma are pretty much similar, so everything is better now. Well, let's click on this, and we get 1 arrow for intelligence, double arrows for will. If you want to find double arrows for intelligence, you have to rely on the pass limited style. But Shiel is also another one, and you can find arrows for agility. Okay, so this character is pretty sustainable. And like I said, she does not use STR or dexterity. That means that her status distribution is pretty well rounded. So for passives, we have Strengthened Energy. Damage increases by 10% and she starts the fight with 12. This is actually very nice and allows her to get some inheritances on turn 1. And then Divinity gives her Morale up and Guard up medium for 1 turn on the start of a turn and every turn. So it will always be active and recovers her BP by 1. We have seen this passive before in someone like Goddess. And it's actually very good because it carries 3 effects, right? The only bad thing is that since you are giving up Morale up and Guard up, you cannot use it with another caster, so it clashes. I wish it was Attack Enhancement or Defense Enhancement, because those two have the same effects but stacks, but it is what it is. You are paying a price for having 2 different things that are good. The third one is called High Protect Tension. We have seen this before. Decreases damage by 30% and increases the damage that she does by 20. So, if you consider it all, we have 55% increase in damage because of the Guard up, and 30% reduction, and then again 25% reduction with Divinity. Very nice to resist. If you are using a formation that also decreases, she barely takes damage. Now, moving on to skills, the first one is called Dark Press. This one is actually pretty interesting because it's fast. For 4 EP you get an E-power attack with 7 mod, well, it's pretty similar to normal attack, but the good thing is that it has a chance to decrease the enemy's agility by up to 15% on max level. And as you can see, her agility and intelligence are not that bad, so she has a good accuracy and also will most of the time debuff agility, unless the enemy has a very high will. And then you may need to bring someone to buff your intelligence. Can be Itoken, can be Matriarch, can be Null's daughter, and it will work. But at least for now, she will be working. The second skill is called Nocturne. It's a 6 BP attack that this time is single target, has a power 28. It carries blunt and shadow damage and debuffs 2 values, STR and agility, each by up to 15% on max level. Well, debuffing agility is usually to decrease the accuracy of mages or to debuff the damage of martial arts attacks. Now we are debuffing STR and agility, two different status that are used by martial arts attacks. There are some mages or, I don't know, dragons that uses this type of attacks, and this will work pretty well, since she can use it 2 times in a row, and because she gets 4 BP, she can even use it 3 times, and then after that, every 2 turns or even shorter periods of time, she will be debuffing 2 status. This is something similar to what you got with Bune. Bune, latest version, has it with Heaven's Breeze, something that you also found in UDX the Howl. The damage is pretty similar, it's 28 against 31, doesn't make much difference. She has 2 elements, Bune has only Slash. Bune will try to counter enemies that also use attacks that are based on dexterity, so she's covering 2 fronts against enemies that are more hybrid, whereas your Schirach will be used in fights against dragons or martial arts attackers, because it's the focus. There's one good thing about Bune, she buffs her own intelligence with her passives. That means that even if the enemy has very high agility or very high will, even if she misses in the start, eventually she gets up and will be able to debuff the enemy with a guarantee or extremely high rates. Now, Schirach may fail in extremely hard scenarios and need a buffer to fix her, but she can still be fixed. Now, the last attack is called Black Hole. This one uses 12 VP and it's an AoE 8 power attack with shadow damage, and the buffs both STR and agility by 30%. And will also buff her own intelligence by 40%. It's actually amazing. I wish it was a little less costly, but it is what it is. You have to wait 3 turns to be able to use it again. But debuffing agility and STR right on start by 30% is pretty massive. Well, I talked about Bune, and Bune had something similar. Well, check. Trinity Summon uses 1 LP and he buffs agility, dexterity, and intelligence by 15% each. So, she has to sacrifice 1 LP because of the morale up extreme effect. That doesn't really help her too much, to be honest. But if you consider it's 15 for 1 status, 15 for the 2nd status, and 15 for the 3rd status, totalizing 45% effects. Whereas, well, Schirach debuffs a total of 16%. So, yeah, not bad. But the cost is higher. Does not sacrifice LP, but it's kinda comparable with a premium character. And because it buffs her own intelligence, it will help her to use Dark Press on the next turn to debuff agility, but then she will forget about STR. Usually it's better to debuff agility since it decreases the evasion rate of the boss and the damage as well, but maybe you need someone else to debuff STR too, depending on the scenarios. So if you want to bring her for AoE farming or boss fights, you will be able to use Black Hole and then switch to Dark Press. If you want her to go for a single target, just keep casting Nocturne. She can use it at least 3 times in a row. Either for farming, either for boss fights. Her cycles are perfect. Now we can talk about Inheritance, and she can use plenty of different things from the first premium style. First of all, we have Dark Nebula. This is a 12 VP attack that also does 8 power shadow damage, and instead of debuffing STR and agility, you will be debuffing will by 20%. And also trying to inflict stun. Well, first she tries to inflict stun and then later she debuffs will, I don't know why, but it's the order. And with a high chance. So, depending on the scenarios, if you get some tower events where we need to debuff will, you can use this and even try to stun the enemies so that you can inflict other stuff like Paralyze, Confusion. The second Inheritance is Hymn of the Nightwind, an 8 PP attack that has blunt and shadow damage, C power, and carries medium chance to inflict stun. This attack is fast and she can use it 2 times in a row. Will work well in tower, challenges, and especially on dojo if you are having difficulty there. Using 2 fast attacks to stun when it stuns is amazing, especially because of medium chance. There is also Sorrows, an attack that has a medium chance to stun and can debuff agility. If there's only 1 enemy, it's better to use this attack instead of her skill number 1, Dark Press. Besides, there is also Shiel, where you can inherit Incense. This is an AoE attack that can debuff STR. So, if you prefer to debuff STR, you can open with Black Hole and then debuff STR instead of agility. It's your choice. Or if there's only one enemy, you can use Call Rush, that is a 8 power attack with 6 BP cost to debuff STR, but I don't know if this is good, since it's a higher cost, you eventually run it out. And Sphere of Sorrow is a nuke single target attack, mostly use it in farming because this is not good to use on boss fights because it debuffs love and charisma by as much as 15%. Right now in the game, debuff strategies are not what they used to be. But if you are a new player, you still have plenty of content to clear like attacks. Debuffs worked so well for the first year. It's only now that it's changing, and it will still work from time to time, just not against all bosses. Schirach is not much of an upgrade over the past one in my opinion, but she does open a wide variety of inheritances if you have both. So this Schirach is a debuffer, and she works pretty well on what she tries to do, especially if you are fighting against a boss that is a martial artist attacker. You will be able to debuff the status that really matters with ease. Sometimes she may miss, sometimes she may need support, but her strategy is pretty simple and offers utility when the bosses don't have the 5 weaknesses. Sadly, the strategy that she offers is easy to replace. There will be characters that will do similarly. We just got plenty of agility debuffers, for example. She just do it differently, with a very good sustain. She's not as important as Jamil, and as a debuffer, she will be receiving a SS grade, but kinda on the mid of the tier list. On to the last character, we have Farah, not for sale. She's a martial artist unit with access to debuffs. She's actually pretty fragile, as you can see from her endurance and will. She's going to take a lot of damage and may even be inflicted with status ailments easily. Her STR is 99%, but her focus is actually agility and intelligence. She even has higher intelligence than STR, with bonuses for both intelligence and agility. Her agility is actually 112, not beating most of the recent martial artists. Her love and charisma are pretty bad, and she does not rely on this. Going off to the passives, the first one is called the Revitalize Tree. On the end of a turn, she has 25% chance to heal herself for a small effect, that should be around 800, and also recovers HP by 3. Again, this is some type of combination of passives, but it actually brings too much RNG. I would much prefer a character to have something like a very small effect, heal, and a +1 BP, so that was reliable and we could guarantee different cycles instead of relying on BP chances. Then the second one, on the end of a turn, again, she has 25% chance to get 5 DP. Again, this is kind of a waste. We could have gotten something like +1 BP on attack and an agility buff or STR buff or anything else. Instead, we only get BP effect. In the current era, it's not enough and based on a 25% chance. But you do have 2 chances of triggering BP, either 3 or 5. If you get the 2 ones to trigger, you are getting, well, 11 DP. But this is pretty unlikely to happen, and she kinda wants to have a lot of BP to use some of her skills, so it becomes a problem. You may have to restart the fight many times if you want her to do what she was made. Then the last one is called High Battle Tension. She starts the fight with 11 VP and gets 20% increase in damage. See, yeah, only 20% increase in damage on the current era, and having to rely on BP to use her strongest attacks. Then skills we have, the first one being 1-2 Punch, a 1 BP attack with C power and 17 mod. That's actually pretty good for the coast. And you are using this skill when you don't have enough BP to use some of the powerful ones. Like the second, Shimmering Strike is a 9 BP attack that has a chance to debuff intelligence by up to 30% on max level. The value is insane, yes, 30% is amazing. We got Rabbit and she can debuff 20%, whereas she can debuff 30%. With 100% intelligence, she's going to debuff most of the time, and she's not going to miss. Her accuracy is pretty high. The problem is you having to rely on her BP to trigger, again, because she cannot use this 2 times in a row, for example. But usually 30% on start should be enough for you to wait at least 1 turn, right? But debuffing intelligence 3 times in a row is still better than debuffing with 9 BP. Unless she gets her BPs to trigger, this will not beat other intelligence debuffers that will keep debuffing intelligence every turn. Now the third attack is called 9 marks. For 13 VP, she gets a 4S attack with 77 mod. While comparing to Shimmer Strike, it was only 59. It's not so high on the triple S mods. 77 is actually super good, but because of the 13 VP cost, you can only use this on the second turn. It buffs her will by up to 40% on max level, so that she does not get inflicted with status augment so much. And debuffs the will of your target by 30%. Yeah, 30% is amazing as well, but locking in a 13 VP skill means that you will only be able to use this on the second turn, and then after that you have to rely on the passives triggering so that you have enough, and it will even take you at least 2 turns to be able to use it again. And here comes the question, why wait so much? Why do you want to debuff will on turn 2 and beyond? Well, there are some challenges where you can paralyze an enemy and it has so much resistance or so much will that you need to bring like 4 characters to debuff will, right? And then some of them can only debuff 15%. And then if they don't have much accuracy, they may even miss. So you guarantee your will debuff with Farah. But the applications of this are extremely niche. And I can tell you something also works. Like, let's say Ruby. Ruby is a very good will debuffer. And I barely use her, but she's amazing. Because she can debuff will by 20% on the start of a turn with 15% chance. So if you get her to debuff 2 times in a row, you already got what Farah offers, and then she can keep debuffing will with her Fire Hat. So she already broke what Farah wanted to offer. Maybe you will need to restart the fight once or twice, but if you have Ruby, she's going to do that easily. But now, the problem with will debuffs is that you can easily find Scorn, a very useful unit that is available to everyone. It's a Platinum style. And he gets access to Fire Hat as well. And has also a chance to debuff will. And, well, it actually works sometimes. So there's no much rush or need to have Farah in your team. There's plenty of older will debuffers that I didn't say here. Like even the latest version of Rouge that was in Leon's banner. Many people will have this Rouge. And after some time, you may even be better buffing your intelligence than just debuffing will. Let's check. Darkness Bolt will debuff the enemy's will and also buff your intelligence. So there's plenty of different options that beats what Farah wants to do. Her damage is not so high. Her cycle are bad. And the strategy that she wants to offer is easily replaceable. Now, speaking about inheritance, she has an S style that you'll be able to get from the event, and none of these attacks matters too much, besides maybe knockout. This is an 8 power attack with 12 VP cost. As you see, it's too costly. We can even look here on Leonid. Leonid also has an 8 power AoE attack, and, well, I have to say, it's much better. 9 VP only. So you have to rely on the RNG to trigger your PP and then use an attack, and she's not even that strong to use AoE to begin with. You're either debuffing or not using Farah at all. Pretty limited style, sadly, and she reduces the value of the banner, and she's only an S style in our tier list, sadly. Also, this is the end of the road for Farah. There's no future style on GP, and she is what you're seeing. Now back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? Well, it depends, but I lean towards a yes. I will give a silver award if you have the past version of Schirach, because then you have plenty of different utility and inheritances, and also Jamil, that is an amazing unit for the current and future. But sadly, Farah does not offer much, just brings the banner down. If you don't have the first version of Schirach, then I believe that this banner will be a bronze award, because even if Schirach is good as she is, we are only summoning for 2 units for long investment. Farah will just not be someone you'll be using for too much, unless you are really lacking on martial artists. But it depends. I also suggest you to wait at least 1 week to see what's to come. This is October, that means that it's the Halloween month. We have Father's banner that's probably coming. We have Halloween's banner that's probably coming soon. and may even see some global acts, so waiting at least 1 week before you decide is actually a very good decision. I will be summoning even if I wait, but I want to get this Jamil, and I do have the first Schirach. But in the end, this is my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you still haven't, and if you want to support the channel, the links on the description. I hope to see you soon in the next one. Bye.